Welcome gamers to a quick performance analysis of the much lauded and very requested The Witcher 3. Yes, we've hit patch 10 now on this release, and what we're looking at here is the PS4 version, the one that was most affected by these performance hiccups with the swamp sections and certain areas in the storms dropping down to lows of 20. The patch here in 1.10 comes in at a whopping 17.5 gigabytes of download, so get your broadband ready for that. I would imagine a majority of that is setting up for the expansion pack Hearts of Stone, which releases next week, which I'll be looking at in more detail next week with a review and maybe a little bit more. And how the performance sits now on both PC and Xbox One, including this patch 1.0, but I've been requested to get the PS4 version, which was the one most in need in these minor areas that I keep stressing in these analyses. They do not affect the entire game, they are isolated to these areas, but does this patch finally fix those 20 frames per second sequences? Well, the good news is, as you can see here from version 108 to 110, yes it does. In fact, the performance is dramatically improved in these areas, even over the original Xbox One version of 1.8, which never had the drops down to this capped or locked 20 that people talked about, this double buffered situation, got confused with. Now what you still have is the game is still most likely double buffered, but these situations, as I said in my analysis, have now been resolved so that you're not getting these long hangs holding back the frame rate. Remember, this game is VSync, so it cannot be allowed to tear, hence why if you miss it by a millisecond, you miss it by a mile. In these intense stressful areas that I'm showing here, again you still get some dips down to 25s and 24s, but these are very, very minor and fleeting. Most of the time it hovers around the 27, 28 in these sequences and returns to the 30s far more consistently, which means you get a more pleasing experience during these tough battles, which now allows me to finally slay these beasts, which I've been stuck in this swamp for months trying to kill. But now, with a smooth 30 enabled to me, they're all dead. Hail patch 110 for finally delivering me victory and enabling me to stay my blade. Now victory is also achieved through Novigrad, which now is more consistent and allows you to ride around with much less stutters. They are still there are still a few frame drops, but it's also patched some of the texture streaming issues and a lot of issues in the game, which now don't seem to be anywhere near as affected on the PS4 as they were near launch. Also, the water ripple effect, the shader work on the water, has now been reinstated with the force blast appearing in this, as you can see here on the water test, but I'm not too sure if this actually reappeared in version 8 or a prior patch. I haven't tested it since, but I thought I'd do a look at this and a more detailed look at the rest of the versions, like I say, in time for the full expansion pack next week. That's all there is on this release. I'll leave you with a few more minutes of footage to compare, just so you can get a good idea of how solid it actually performs. And if anyone was holding off completing this epic yarn due to these performance hiccups, you're now safe to know that just like all other versions, you can wander into those swamps without any worries. And with that story told, I'm off to wander aimlessly in some swamps with a sword and torch. You guys and girls take care, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.
We can gather it here. We're in this place.
Mud like that, won't get you